In this video, we'll look at the heartbreaking story of a young woman that managed to speak to her mother for one last time as she was being mauled to death by a hungry bear and its cubs. It's a brutal story, one that once again proves that the wilderness can be unforgiving. Olga Moskalyova was only 19 years old in late August 2011 when she and her stepfather Igor Tsyganenkov decided to go camping near the village of Termalni. It was meant to be a short fishing trip before returning home to Tatiana, Olga's mother and Igor's wife, and to their day-to-day life. This wasn't their first time out in the wild. After all, they lived in the Russian Far East, a place which has become legendary for its harsh living conditions. To most of us, it might seem like a cruel, untamed place. To them, it was just their backyard. In Russian regional schemes, the Russian Far East has been traditionally noted separately from Siberia, but the territory can be considered part of Siberia, if only for its geographical traits. There isn't a precise definition of Siberia's territorial borders. It just goes on and on and on, home to never-ending winters, mountains and lowlands, lakes, rivers, and grasslands. Termalni, the village nearby where Olga and her stepfather Igor went fishing, is surrounded by wild forests, mountains, and even an active volcano. But while human settlements may be more or less safe, the outdoors is another matter entirely. The forests are thick with undergrowth, fir, and pine trees. They're a perfect home to a large array of animals, including red deer, lynx, tigers, leopards, and bears. As beautiful as these animals can be, they are also extremely dangerous, especially if they're hungry or they feel threatened. And sometimes it's us, humans, who get the short end of the stick and end up paying the ultimate price. When our luck runs out and every safety measure fails, there's nothing left to save us from the claws of an enraged animal, save for a miracle. And miracles are rare. In late August 2011, Olga Moskalyova and Igor Tsyganenkov started their trip near Termalni, out in the wilderness. The Russian Far East is home to some of the most diverse and rich river ecosystems. There had been a recent start in large-scale poaching and the development of extractive industries in the area, but rivers were still teeming with fat, delicious salmon. Fishing is a traditional source of sustenance for the population. So the two of them went on their trip, expecting to return with a nice catch. There's no reason to believe they weren't in good spirits. In fact, 19-year-old Olga had just gotten her driver's license, only days prior to the trip. She was a music school graduate and had high hopes and big plans for her future. The young woman was a trainee psychologist. It all seemed perfect, and a routine fishing trip had no way of ruining everything. Except it did. Humans aren't the only ones who appreciate the savory taste of salmon or their nutritional qualities. Bears are also world-renowned fans of fish. It's not uncommon to come face to face with a hungry beast anywhere near a river. But Olga and Igor didn't just come across one bear. They came across 4 brown bears, a mother and its 3 cubs. Mother bears are notorious for their protectiveness over their cubs. If they feel like their young ones are threatened, they waste no time before attacking. It's unclear what exactly triggered the horrifying events that came next. But whether the bear felt Olga and Igor were a threat, whether the animals were simply startled or just hungry, it doesn't matter. They attacked. As Olga looked on in horror, the mother bear leapt on Igor, knocking him to the ground. The enraged animal used all of its force, and it didn't take very long until its considerable force overpowered Igor. The brown bear broke the man's neck, and as if it weren't enough, it smashed his skull. Olga witnessed the attack, but probably quickly realized she was going to be next. Desperate to flee, she turned around and broke into a run, but it was no use. She ran for what probably felt like miles and miles. In reality, the young woman was able to run only about 70 yards, and then her own nightmare began. Brown bears can reach speeds up to 35 miles per hour, especially if they're in peak condition or determined to catch their prey. No human can outrun a brown bear. Running is never an option. As such, the mother bear caught up immediately with Olga. It grabbed her leg. The bear repeatedly chased and attacked the young woman. At some point during the attack, Olga managed to get out her phone and call her mother, Tatiana Tsyganenkov. Back home, Tatiana answered the call. She had no idea what she was about to hear. She was met with her daughter's desperate voice. "Mom," the girl screamed, "the bear is eating me. Mom, is such agony. Mom, help." Olga was a fun girl. It wasn't unlike her to pull pranks on her mother. That's what Tatiana thought at first, that her daughter was joking around. But then she listened closer, and her heart sank. Dread filled her body as she realized the pain in her daughter's voice was real. And Tatiana could also hear other sounds, horrible ones. The woman could hear the bear growling and chewing. A mix of shock, dread, and pain overcame her, and she felt she could die on the spot. Before she could say anything to her daughter, the call ended. Wanting to help her child, Tatiana called Igor, her husband. She had no way to know her husband was already dead, killed by the same bear which was now mauling her daughter. His phone rang, but it was no use. As the seconds went by, Tatiana was going insane with worry, pain, and the unbearable feeling of knowing she couldn't do anything to help her daughter. The woman then phoned the local police and some family members that lived nearby the area and begged them to go rescue her daughter. Meanwhile, Olga was struggling for her life. The bear killed Igor instantly, but it toyed with the young woman. She somehow managed to call her poor mother again. "Mom, the bears are back. She came back and brought her 3 babies. They're eating me." These were the only words Olga was able to tell her mother before the call disconnected a second time. There are no words that could describe the pain, the mental anguish, and the dread both mother and daughter must have felt. Going mad with grief, Tatiana couldn't do anything but hope and pray that help would arrive soon, and her daughter would be saved from the claws and snapping jaws of the 4 bears. But then she got a third, final call from her daughter. This time, the girl sounded different. It was the last time Tatiana heard her daughter's voice. At that point, it had been almost an hour after the initial call. It was obvious Olga could sense she was going to die. Her words would be engraved in her mother's mind forever. "Mom," the young woman said, "it's not hurting anymore. I don't feel the pain. Forgive me for everything. I love you so much," were the last words Olga Moskalyova ever told her mother before the call was cut off for the final time. It took rescuers another half hour after the final phone call to reach the place of the attack. When they got there, they were met with a gruesome sight. Police officers were accompanied by Andrei, Igor Tsyganenkov's brother. Together, they saw the mother bear and its cubs feeding off Igor's remains. Olga was lying on the ground not too far away, her lifeless body horribly mauled by the beasts. 6 hunters were dispatched to kill the bears. The 19-year-old was declared dead at the scene. Her mother, Tatiana Tsyganenkov, was left heartbroken. She described her daughter as a fun, cheerful, friendly, and warm person. A person that had her whole life ahead of her.